she was about to destroy the Terminator. And her son said, no, wait a minute, you can't do that.
There's not much time left in the world, Sarah.
Well, it was intense, but certainly it was a braver choice than I expected.
Smile once in a while.
Smile?
That's a good scene because I'm asking him questions. We can both learn off each other.
I thought that stuff was cool because that means if he can't control what's happening to him, then he's starting to lose it.
There are a lot of little scenes that are good. It's the same cast, the same writer, the same director, but it turned out to be slightly less necessary than the pieces on either side of it in the final cut of the movie. But certainly there might be a group of people who would be very interested in seeing the longer version, the special edition.
Terminator 2, more than meets the eye. In Terminator 2, Judgment Day, Sarah Connor joined forces with the Terminator to protect her son John from the deadly T-1000. Together, they tried to alter the path of history for the survival of mankind. In creating a compelling world where man and machine are both ally and enemy, writer-director James Cameron had to create characters whose lives extended far beyond the confines of the screen.
The process of writing a good script is the process of creating characters that have complete lives, that have complete pasts, and that everything that they do within the confines of a 2-hour piece is determined by everything that went before that. It's the art of setting up those characters as quickly but as completely as possible. So I tend to leave it a little fuller than it needs to be in the final cut.
The scenes that are written can work beautifully in the written word or as even reading a script and go, this is neat, oh, this is fun. And then you realize if you translate all of that to film, you're going to possibly lose when it comes to pace.
There were great scenes, but it had to go because the movie had to be cut down to around 2 hours and 15 minutes or so.
And it's often difficult to predict before the fact exactly what piece of information will be necessary or how many times a given character trait has to be reiterated for it to be powerful within a film.
One such scene was an eerie moment with the T-1000 in John Connor's home.
The T-1000 searching John's room is a classic case of underestimating the audience. I wasn't sure that people would get the idea that what he touched, what he had physical contact with, he could sample molecularly, but I wanted to really get that concept across. And in that scene, you see it very clearly. He touches everything in the room, he's searching for some clue, and his hand goes across the poster, and he knows the box is in there without seeing it.
I had this whole theory that if he's going to search, and he's so sense-aware, that he doesn't rip through and tear things up. He goes in and tries not to disturb things, but just tries to find his information. His fingertips could do a lot of reading for him. It's sort of like reading Braille.
But ultimately, you see the whole film cut together and you say, I don't need that. I get it. I get it already.
This omitted scene added a more menacing tone to Sarah's introduction at the hospital.
Time to take your meds, Connor.
I'm not taking it, Dougie. I don't want any trouble.
Ain't no trouble.
The point there was we were trying to dig a very deep hole that she had to climb out of. And the deeper the hole, the more courageous she was for having gotten herself out of it because there was nobody to help her. It sets up the antagonism with Dougie, which pays off later. Dougie forcing her to take her medication is the trigger for the first dream sequence.
This dream sequence, cut from the final release, featured the return of Kyle Reese, played by Michael Biehn.
Sarah. Sarah, wake up. Where's our son, Sarah?
He took him away from me.
He's the target now.
I know.
He's all alone. You have to protect him.
I know. You tell me how I'm supposed to do that. He doesn't even believe me anymore. I've lost him.
You're strong, Sarah. Stronger than you ever thought you could be.
No.
On your feet, soldier. I love you, Sarah. I always will.
I need you.
I'll always be with you. Remember the message. The future is not set. There is no fate but what we make for ourselves.
Stay with me.
There's not much time left in the world, Sarah.
I thought it would remind people who had seen the first movie what the first movie was all about, or what I thought it was all about, which was a love story.
The first dream sequence was a reiteration of the relationship with Reese and is of value to people who really remembered the first film clearly and wanted to see a resonation of the first film in the second film a little bit more, that relationship.
Michael had played a character who died in the first film, so he came back as the character in the first film because his character died and there's no growth. I had gone through, this major history with myself, so I had a very different investment in the scene than I might have 7 years ago in our relationship. I didn't want to come back and play the same weak Sarah who he has to kind of hold up and get her motivated to go out there and win and do her job. Jim was kind of in between us, dancing around, and it was an interesting day's work to sort of all try to find what we needed. And Jim was like writing the scene, and I would look at it and cry, and he would throw it out. It's like, it was intense. Certainly, it was a braver choice than I expected.
One of the things I always feel strongly about in a sequel is that it shouldn't require you to have seen the first film. It should be self-contained.
It didn't surprise me that this didn't make the cut because you've only got so much movie and it's not part of the storytelling. It's more of like, well, remember this.